Good morning. Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Melissa. I'm your host, Melissa. Cheers. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am so excited to be able to bring lots of free, valuable content to you via video, YouTube. And I'm just so incredibly grateful to have the opportunity to share things that I've learned in my life with you personally, because I feel like, a lot of times we're on the same page, and I'm a firm believer in that we naturally gravitate to mentors, coaches, anyone who has not literally walked in our shoes, but metaphorically walked in our shoes and knows where we're coming from. So I hope that my life experience that I share with you really resonates with you, and I just want to thank you for just following me and giving me the opportunity to help you, coach you along the way, whether it's only through my videos, my blog, my social media, one-on-one or in a group setting. I'm just incredibly grateful. It warms my heart to see everyone just going through that transformation and creating a better life for themselves. So I just wanted to say that. It's really been on my mind lately, and so thank you. Okay, I want you to imagine this for a moment. Imagine you pick up a book that, say, for example, like a self-help book. That's something that I read. I'm constantly reading a self-help book in the morning. I mentioned, I think it was last week, that I started reading this book, Tiny Habits, which I'm still reading. It's amazing. It's really good. And like I said, a lot of it I already know and I'm familiar with and I practice, but I love learning more, like looking at it from a different perspective. So imagine that you pick up a self-help book. You've read a bazillion of them. You're into Jack Canfield, Bob Proctor, all the big names, Lisa Nichols. And you pick it up and you start reading it. You're like, oh my God, I already know this. What if you kind of flip the switch a little bit in your mind? What if you did that? And you're like, you know what? This time I'm going to be open-minded, and I'm going to ask myself, what can I learn? What can I learn? So I learned this great phrase from my gal, my business coach, Marie Forleo, and life coach too. But this is such a really great book. Everything is figure-outable. If you haven't picked it up yet, I highly recommend it. It's really, really great. It has exercises in it and everything. But as I mentioned last week with Tiny Habits, I like to mark pages with little Post-its that really resonate with me. And I haven't gone through this. I've read the whole book, but I haven't gone back through and marked everything. But I want to share something from you that I learned through her. She says, I think this is the first chapter, maybe the introduction, I'm not quite sure, but she talks about training. This is her roadmap to success. Train your brain for growth. So I'm going to read just a short few sentences from this. I quote, "The first destructive thought to watch out for is, I know this already. Whenever we feel like we already know something, our minds disengage and shut down. The next time you hear yourself thinking or saying, I know this already, especially as you read this book, immediately catch that thought and switch it to a growth-minded question. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Ask it again and again with genuine curiosity. What can I learn from this? What can I learn from this?" End quote. She goes on and on about this, and it's really powerful. So let's talk about, I want to talk a little bit about that this morning, because I feel like that we all do this, especially in the health space. Like, I know I need to eat whole real foods. I know I need to move my body. I know this, blah, blah, blah. But oftentimes when we're saying that in our mind, we're not actually walking the walk. We're saying, I know this. Yes, I know this. We're talking the talk, but we're not actually walking the walk. So I've, had a lot of big reality checks, kind of going through her book, and I'm enrolled in her online business course. And through that entire course, I just really, because she talks about it at the beginning of B School too, and throughout B School, like, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from this? And it's all things that I already know in business. I've heard this a million times. I'm really into business. I have been my whole life. I've always felt like I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. But what can I learn from this? And I had a lot of aha moments, and I thought, well, if I really was implementing all these things, my business would be way more successful, and I'd be way further along down the roadmap that I have mapped out for us and our business. And I say us, meaning my hubby and I. He does a lot of behind the scenes stuff, not a lot, but some, and I couldn't do it without him. Let's just say that. So anyway, so I invite you to, when you're reading these posts about health, you're like, I know I need to do this. I know I need to do that. I know this. I've heard this several times before. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Maybe you'll have an aha moment where you're like, oh my gosh, I am not doing this. I know this, but it's pretty clear that I'm not doing this. So what can I learn from this? Maybe you learn something new on how to implement it, actually start implementing it into your life. So I want to read something else from her as well. So what she proceeds to say in this Train Your Brain for Growth section is the second destructive thought, virus, she calls it a virus, is this won't work for me. This won't work for me. Instead of saying this won't work for me, I'm quoting her, which instantly shuts down the possibility of anything working, stop, catch it, and change it into a more productive question. Ask yourself, how can this work for me? How can this work for me? Asking this question again and again forces you to look beyond the obvious, stretch outside your cognitive comfort zone, and poke holes in your own status quo. You'll train your brain to find new connections, innovations, opportunities, and possibilities that otherwise would have been missed. Wow. Oh my gosh. When I read that, I was floored. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Amazing. And I hear this all the time from clients. I can't do this. I can't meal plan. I can't cook healthy meals. I can't exercise. You don't understand. You don't know my life, Melissa. You don't know my schedule. I've heard it all. I've been coaching long enough and training people long enough to know I've heard every excuse in the book as to why they don't exercise, why they don't eat right. And I made up the same excuses, and I catch myself doing it as well. So when it's so fascinating to me, as I've been going through Marie Forleo's business school, online business school, I'd be like, yeah, I know this. But now when I change it to what can I learn and how, instead of just jumping in and saying, just immediately saying, this won't work for me. This won't work for me. I can't do this. This won't work for me. It's like, no. How can I make this work for me? And you really, I learned from a health coach I used to coach with, who's an amazing health coach. She is phenomenal. I just adore her. But she taught the group the phrase trial and learn. Trial and learn. And I love that because it's like, I'm going to do this And I'm going to see how it works for me for a week or a day or a month, however, whatever time frame you choose, it doesn't matter. And I'm going to see if it works. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to tweak it. I'm going to make minor little tweaks. And I really view life as one big life experiment. So, because I don't know about you, but I want to live my life to the fullest. You know, that's one reason why I got into this field. But because I want to help make it, I want to make a difference and be flexible, be able to work remote, be able to travel with my husband whenever we want. But I just really focus on like, how can this work for me? And if you've tried so many different ways, maybe it's not right for you. It's like different eating styles. While I know what works best for me, no body is exactly alike. No body is exactly alike. My husband can do really, really well on super low carb, like keto. He even did carnivore for a little while and felt great. But for me, I don't do well on that. And I have friends who do really well on a full plant-based diet where they don't eat any animal products, no animal fat, no animal protein. And they thrive. They're in great health. They have a lot of energy. They have mental clarity. And that's why I feel like you have to just ask yourself, like, don't let anyone tell you what to do, but ask yourself, how can this work for me? And if it can't work for you, then don't do it. Find something else that will work for you. So I want you to take Marie Forleo's advice. And if you haven't followed her, follow her on Instagram and go to her YouTube channel. She's been a life coach for over 2 decades, and she has some phenomenal videos on her YouTube channel. So anyway, so ask yourself, what can I learn from this and how can this work for me? So I encourage you in the next week or so, 24 hours, however often, or whenever something comes up, just be aware. When you hear something and you're like, oh, I already know this, ask yourself, what can I learn? And how can this work for me? I encourage you, do that and comment in the comment section and let me know what happened, what your results were, how you felt. Because one more thing I want to bring up is oftentimes, like, we hear something over and over again, but it doesn't really resonate with us because of where we're at in our life. We're not really ready to hear it or to implement it, and that's okay. That's okay. But oftentimes we hear it again and it's like, okay, now I'm ready to hear this. And when you're open-minded like that, you ask myself, what can I learn? And how can this work for me? It's like mind-blowing, like the opportunities that come up. It's like, whoa, all these things start falling into place. So I encourage you, do it. It'll change your life. I promise you, if it doesn't change your life, you can come at me. I don't care. But anyways, all right. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so grateful. And I'll see you guys soon. Cheers.